Hey friends, what's up? This is Conni from Live Your Heart Out, and blessings from Germany. One last time, I'm leaving, flying out in a couple of days to Ecuador. And in this video, I want to share with you my story of how I found my calling in life. Because I believe it's one of the most important things we can do is to go out and commit to really figuring out what our calling is, what we're here to do, what we're here to serve. I don't believe in just having a mediocre life, and that's no judgment. I'm just saying it's not for me. I believe that we're here for a purpose. We all carry that purpose within us, and it's our job to figure out what that is, to uncover it, to shed all the layers that keep us from knowing who we truly are and finding out why we're here on this planet Earth, granted this life, which is beautiful, you know? Essentially, it's a story about me not knowing at all what I wanted to do with my life, to then becoming a scuba dive instructor, and eventually becoming an online entrepreneur with a mission, and being all over social media, making videos, and yeah. So this is how the story goes. I grew up in Germany, in this town where I'm right now. It's a small town just north of Munich. And I went to school here until I was 15. And at that stage of my life, I had no idea who I was. I was deep in the closet. I was super insecure, had no real self-confidence, even though I might have looked different on the outside. I think I was a very tough sort of teenager on the outside because I was protecting a lot of stuff that I was feeling ashamed of, or that I was afraid I'd get hurt. I really always wanted to get out of this small town. It was driving me crazy. And I really felt like I couldn't grow here, and I didn't feel inspired. And I pushed my parents really hard to let me go on a school exchange year, high school year in the United States, to live with a host family and spend a year going to high school there. I eventually got them to the point where they said yes, we organized it, and I was off. Now, this is a very important part of my story because this is how my nomadic life started. This is how this desire to be in different places and kind of keep searching for that place that would make me happy. This is where it started. I had a great year. And after that year, I came back to Germany. I went back to school here, and they let me skip a year. So then I was in, I think, maybe 10th grade or 11th grade, and I didn't understand what they were talking about there at school, and chemistry and Latin and physics and all of that. And so I wasn't gonna make it here. And I wasn't really that motivated either to be back, you know. I never felt really good at the school I was at, and felt very, very shy and just not very, I don't know, I never felt like I was in the right place. This is not where I belonged. And anyway, my parents ended up sending me to a school, like a boarding school in England, in Brighton. And I was there for 2 years. I got my A-levels there. During those 2 years, Brighton is known for its very high-vibing sort of nightlife. And yes, I did that a lot, and a lot of other things. But I eventually graduated. And this is now, I'm 17 now, almost 18, and I have no clue what I want to do with my life. I applied to go to university a couple of years in a row in England, and I think also in the United States, but I couldn't actually commit. Even though I was accepted, I couldn't commit to starting university yet. And so I took about 2 years in which I went down to Spain to study Spanish, and I did an internship in this media company, photo company in a small little village not far from here. I was just doing some random jobs and making money and trying to figure out for 2 years what I wanted to do with my life. Still didn't really have a clue, but I was always quite fascinated with cameras, tech equipment in general, computers. When I was like 9 years old, I went to the computer club here in town with my best friend. I was always super into computers and technology. And also I remember just being fascinated by cameras. And down in the basement here, I still have a huge box of thousands and millions of photos that I took ever since I had my first camera when I was maybe 10 years old or something. And I kind of had the urge, I wanted to go to like a photography school or a film school. I always was also into filming and making videos. I had a little camcorder, but I didn't feel motivated enough to actually apply to these schools. I think in the end it came down to me not believing in myself. I didn't think I was good enough. The classic. And so I never actually applied to those schools. I went the easy route and did something kind of similar, but not really. I went and ended up studying communication and media in Austria, in Salzburg, because I wanted to go there because I wanted to be close to the mountains. Back at that time, I was really into snowboarding, and so that was kind of cool. So I went to university, and during the day I'd go to classes, and then later in the afternoon I'd go snowboarding. So that was great, but I've, basically at that point when I started uni, I was 19. I'd already lived abroad for several years. I already, I had started traveling and backpacking and went to Thailand for the first time backpacking. And so that was always a big sort of motivation for me to always also do random jobs and make money and to spend all my money and time going, saving for traveling and going on all sorts of trips. Whenever I had time and there was vacation from uni. And eventually after my bachelor's, I ended up going to the United States, and I did a year there in Ohio. And that was great. I had a wonderful time, lots of fun, traveled around the States a lot. And then after that I came back, I went to Vienna and started my master's degree there. And I didn't enjoy living in Vienna very much for some reason. I just couldn't really find friends, and I don't know. And then so I went back after a year, went back to Salzburg, finished up my degree there in 2009. And in the meantime, I was working random jobs, but also I was working at the university. I was like a teaching assistant, and I was doing all sorts of stuff and always making money to go traveling. And so I'd been all over the place up until that point. I was traveling Central America for several months. I was everywhere. And so in 2009, my grandpa, he died a year or so before that, before I graduated, and I inherited about 10,000 euros. And I used that money not to buy stuff, I used it to go traveling. So I bought a one-way ticket to India right after I graduated, and with a friend, we took off with a huge guidebook to India, but we didn't really know what we were going to do, and just kind of freestyled it. And yeah, wow, I mean, that was such a crucial point and for the rest of my life, that one-way ticket to India, because there I also met my first girlfriend. And then after about 2 months, we left. I went to Southeast Asia and eventually became a scuba dive instructor on the Gili Islands, not very far from Bali. And so this was the first time that I went to Bali. It was 2009. So my relationship with Bali goes way back. And so I love being a scuba dive instructor. I was like, I found it. That's it. I'm going to be a scuba dive instructor for the rest of my life. Yeah, so that was great. But I had met my first girlfriend in India, but we didn't actually start dating until I went to visit her in Australia while I was working in Indonesia. And then eventually I ended up moving to Australia, to Sydney. And then we also moved up to Cairns. So I was working as a scuba dive instructor up there on the big boats. And everything was great. And then eventually we ended up going to Germany because she wanted to learn German. I felt like maybe it was a good idea to just spend a year back home after several years abroad and traveling. And so that's what we did. We moved to Berlin for a year because she got a visa, she was Australian, for a year. And I was like, man, now I need to get like a proper job. And I didn't really know what that meant. At that point, this must have been 2010, so I was probably like 27, 26. And I ended up applying to all sorts of companies, PR agencies and whatnots. I didn't really know what I was applying for. I had studied communication, and I did have a focus on journalism in my bachelor's, and I've always enjoyed writing. I always loved writing. Apart from all the tech stuff and the cameras, I always loved writing. And I thought I was going to maybe become a journalist, actually, when I was doing my bachelor's. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but bear with me. And so I eventually, though, had to realize that my professors, they didn't like the stuff I was writing. And so I didn't get the grades for me to get validated that I would be good at writing and maybe become a journalist or whatever. And so I kind of buried that dream. I was like, I'm not good enough, my writing sucks, so better move on to something else. And in my master's, I was focusing on international communication and internet development and that sort of stuff. And so I was applying to all these jobs in Berlin and eventually ended up in this PR agency for startups. And it was a small little company, and it was a great environment to learn a few things, but I just didn't feel challenged. And I knew immediately after about 2 weeks, I was like, man, a 9 to 5. Oh my goodness, how am I ever gonna survive this for the rest of my life if that's what I had to do? And I mean, I always kind of knew my safety net was going back out and becoming a scuba dive instructor. But at the same time, I was really frustrated because I was like, I signed up for a 1-year contract. I don't know how I'm going to do this because I hate this so much, sitting on the same chair in the same office every day, taking public transport every day, and just like working on someone else's dream. And I just really couldn't fathom doing that for a whole year, let alone an entire life. And I really thought something was wrong with me because I was like, how is everybody else doing this? No one is complaining, and everybody's doing a 9 to 5, and I'm here for 2 or 4 weeks, and I'm already hating it. And yeah, so that was a breaking point. And I was at that company. I kept on working there, but I started looking for different ways to, I guess, realize my dream of being free. Because I knew that I wanted to be free. I wanted to be able to travel the world and live anywhere. And I knew that me and my girlfriend at the time, we wanted to go back to Australia eventually so she could go back to uni. And I knew I didn't want to work in some random cafe in Sydney again. And there's no diving in Sydney. So I was like, what am I going to do? What is something that I can do from anywhere? And eventually it just clicked. It was like, well, I would have to work on the internet. And so I don't know what happened, but the 4-Hour Workweek landed in my lap by Tim Ferriss, that book, the Bible, I guess, for a lot of digital nomads out there and online entrepreneurs. And I started reading it, and I just loved the concept. But I was quite skeptical, and I ended up researching a lot. And I came across all these, blogs, and there weren't that many yet, but some guys in English. There was nothing in German yet. They were talking about being a digital nomad, working from anywhere, being location dependent, and I was like, yeah, cool, I want that, but how do I do it? So I was quite skeptical, but I was really drawn to it. And this was also when I got into reading blogs and just kind of understanding the concept of what a blog is and how awesome it is to just be able to write whatever and publish it and to reach people with your message. And so it really fascinated me. I just started reading more, and I started listening to podcasts, and eventually I just got hooked, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit my job, even though I signed a 1-year contract, but I need to get out of here. And in the meantime, while I still have a couple of months to go, I will start learning as much as I can about blogging, online marketing, business, and I'm going to go and become a digital nomad, and I'm going to start my own online business. So I did start my very first blog, A Life of Blue, in November or October of 2011. And it was all about living an unconventional life and kind of documenting my journey, my steps into location independence and starting my own online business. And it's about minimalism and traveling. And so it was my baby. I loved that blog. And I was just so motivated every day. I'd come home from work, and I'd annoy my girlfriend because I'd just sit down on my laptop and start, working on my blog and writing blog posts, and I just do that like all the time. I would spend all my time building that blog and figuring out ways for me to make money once I quit that job, which I did in January of 2012. And so then I started freelancing. So I told everybody I would do social media stuff like Facebook and management of whatever pages. I would do online PR. I would do translations. I would build some simple WordPress websites. And at the time, I didn't have a whole lot of skills. I really didn't have a whole lot of skills. But I was kind of faking it until I made it. it all kind of started out pretty well. I was just telling everybody this is what I do now, and yeah, I got clients pretty quickly. But I also realized pretty quickly, a few months into that being a freelancer, no, that's not me either. So I just, yeah, always had this urge for more freedom and to be able to work whenever I wanted to. I didn't like deadlines. I didn't like other people telling me what to do and how to do it. But, you know, to get started was great because I was making money right off the bat. I was able to work from anywhere. And in the meantime, I was building up a life of blue. Eventually, I actually started a travel blog in German called Planet Backpack. This was in April of 2012. And this came about because a friend of mine who was just about to go on his first trip as a digital nomad, he said, Conni, there's no information really on backpacking and world travel and stuff in German that's really good. And I think you should start a travel blog because there's so much potential. He was like all over the online marketing, like he knew his stuff. And Conni, you should do it. You have so much experience traveling and living in different places. And I was like, nah, really not interested in becoming a travel blogger. And then I did think about it though for a little bit, and he told me straight away, this is how you can make money with it. And I was like, huh. So at first I wanted to start a website reviewing all sorts of products for travelers and backpacks and all that stuff. And eventually though, I came up with the idea for Planet Backpack. And so I started that, and I put my heart and soul into it. That was definitely a big calling. So first there was being a scuba dive instructor. Then I started blogging, and being a travel blogger for me was like, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna be a travel blogger for the rest of my life. Again, like I just get really excited about, you know, when I'm passionate about something, then I get obsessed about it, and I cannot imagine not doing that for the rest of my life, which, you know, it's great. But I also realized eventually that, it's about living out not just one calling, but maybe several callings, you know. Maybe for some people it's just one for the rest of their lives. And for me, eventually I realized, nope, I think it's okay to do something for a while and then kind of transitioning into something else, which is what happened over the last couple of years. So anyway, Planet Backpack grew into a very big travel blog very quickly because I put my heart and soul and all my energy and time into it. My girlfriend and I, we broke up, so I had a lot of time to do that and to heal my heart that was very broken. And so Planet Backpack definitely came out of that as well because I had a really broken heart and I just dove into this big passion of blogging. And so, yeah, and I kind of started traveling as a digital nomad properly at the beginning of 2012. Before that, I would say I was an analog nomad, a gypsy, and now I was a location-independent entrepreneur. I started making money with my blog. And eventually I also met a guy, also another travel blogger, German, and we started a business together and started teaching other people how to become professional bloggers because we didn't understand why we were making money with it, but not many other bloggers in Germany. And so we started teaching offline workshops, in-person workshops, and retreats, and then eventually we put all of our knowledge and experience into an online course and started selling that. Roughly at the same time, must have been maybe 2014 or so, I also created an ebook course that teaches people how to live and work location dependent, how to basically quit your 9-to-5 and become a digital nomad. And so I started selling that, and it was all going great. And, you know, I was making a lot of money, and the blog, I was, you know, speaking at conferences, and I kind of had created a name for myself here in Germany. But eventually I also realized, man, just being a digital nomad and a travel blogger, it's a little bit boring. And I started to get more and more and more over the years into yoga and meditation. And then I became vegan in 2015. Yes, beginning of 2015. And so I was more and more embracing all of that, and I was like, it's not being reflected on my blog. It's just about backpacking and traveling the world, and I got a bit bored with that. And so I rebranded my blog, I relaunched it, and now I wasn't just the digital nomad, I called myself the digital Zen nomad. And I wanted to share with people not just my travels, but also my travels more inwards, as you know, and also like share my experience living a holistic lifestyle and being a yogi and all of that. Now there's a few things that I did and started with other people, or that I started on my own, that I'm not going to go into, but I started like a media agency and whatnot. So That's so cool, but let's move on, because I ended up also doing my yoga teacher training, and this is also, again, a very crucial point on my journey, because I, during that time, realized, okay, cool, so here's me doing my yoga teacher training for a whole month. I don't need to worry about my business. I'm just making money without actually having to work. I was literally doing the 4-hour work week, basically. I didn't have time to do much more than that while I was doing that course to become a yoga teacher. And I didn't want to become a yoga teacher. I didn't do that training to actually then teach. I just wanted to learn. I love learning. I was obsessed with yoga, so I just wanted to learn everything there is about yoga. And afterwards, though, I was like, okay, I'm just going to rock the 4-hour work week. I've been hustling my heart out for years, and I'm just going to do whatever Tim Ferriss, suggested to do. So for a few months, I was just kind of living the dream, and that was great. I barely worked. The blog was still making lots of money. It was growing. Everything was perfect. I was living in paradise in Bali at the time. And however, I had to go through another breakup, and I ended up really spiraling downwards with a lot of things in life. And even though business was great, life on the outside was great, I realized I'm not great, and I'm not sharing that on social media or through my blog, and I felt like I was an imposter. I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, and that felt really shit. So I decided, and I can go into a lot of detail about that, but what's really important is that at that point I decided that I was going to open up. I was going to talk about the shadows and the downsides and the dark times of being a digital nomad, living everywhere and living the 4-hour work week. And in that process, I realized I need to start making videos, because videos is like the most authentic channel or medium to connect with other people. I started making more YouTube videos. I did a 30-day YouTube challenge, and I started to talk about more and more vulnerable stuff. I remember doing a video about my coming out story that was massive for me personally. That was like one of the most vulnerable videos up until that point. But at the same time, the feedback was so beautiful, and I was like, wow, so when I open up, people really connect to me, and that was a game changer for me. So I made more and more videos like that, sharing more of my stories and my inner journey and my challenges and my struggles and all of the stuff that not many people talk about. And while I was doing that, I also noticed more and more that I was disconnecting more and more from Planet Backpack, from my travel blog, and from that community that I had built over the years there. And I then decided about a year ago that I needed a new name, and I wanted to switch to English. So that's what I did in January of 2017. I switched from German to English on my YouTube channel. Instagram had always been in English, and I kind of scaled down the energy and the time that I spent on Planet Backpack, and started building a new sort of website and platform called Live Your Heart Out. Just one day, it just kind of came to me. I'd been looking for a name for it for a while, but just until that one day, maybe it was in Shavasana or something at yoga, but it just came out with like, Live Your Heart Out, Conni, that's it. So I, got the domain, started building the website, and just kind of got more in touch with that message of Live Your Heart Out, but didn't really know exactly yet where this is going to take me. And I started a 30-day challenge, and 30 days of vulnerability, where I made a video every day about something that I felt vulnerable about. And that was amazing. Again, crucial, very special point in my life were those 30 days in January of 2017. And eventually, I realized, okay, so what I need to do is, because this is what I felt called to do. And when the calling calls you out to service, it's because this urge to do something comes from deep within, I believe anyway. And so I felt called to make more videos like that. It was, a lot of times when we have these insights or epiphanies, or we're like, I gotta do this, but you can't actually rationally explain why you need to do something. Yeah, that's usually like some sort of connection to up there, some sort of download. This is your calling coming through you. And this is how it was with, making personal videos and talking about vulnerable stuff, and sharing myself so openly and really evolving out loud, sharing my personal growth so openly. And this was something that I didn't do that because I wanted the attention or because I needed confirmation or whatever. It was literally because this is what I felt called to do. I also started getting back into photography. I got myself, a proper camera again a year or two ago. This was roughly around the same time, and really embraced going out and shooting photographs again. And so I published those on Instagram, so I incorporated my joy for taking photos that I had as a teenager and as a young kid, now as an adult, which is really awesome because I run a business that allows me to do many different things that I used to be really passionate about back in the days, like writing, making videos, photography, all of these things. And yeah, today, live your heart out, that's it. That's my message. It's all about living passionately and really striving to live a life that sets your soul and your heart on fire. And it's about so many more things, but what I want to express through making this video is that I had to take a few detours. If you had told me, even just 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, that this is what I would be doing, that I would be running a platform called Live Your Heart Out, sharing my personal growth, talking a lot about a healthy lifestyle, inspiring other people, making YouTube videos all the time. Now I started a podcast. I'm about to launch a clothing line, a t-shirt collection, which I'm wearing actually the Live Your Heart Out t-shirt right now. I don't know if you can see it. Live Your Heart Out. So that's happening soon. I've got so many things in the pipeline that I had no idea were on my radar, on my horizon. And I had to go through all these different steps, and I had all these different touch points, right? Of being a scuba dive instructor and all these travels and me going off to live in the States when I was 15. I had to experience all of that to end up where I am today. Now, what is my calling actually now? Maybe you're wondering, you're like, what, blogging, making videos? Nah, you gotta see the big picture, right? So for me, and this is what I've come up with throughout the last months or the last year or so, and I've kind of got that confirmation in so many different ways. My calling is to teach, my calling is to inspire, and my calling is to lead. And it's something that comes very naturally for me, to share my experiences, to share my knowledge, to inspire other people, to really use their potential to live an amazing life. My calling is to share my stories of challenges and struggles, my stories of learnings and personal growth, and also business. I love sharing stuff about business and how to be a successful entrepreneur and run an online business. But it's sharing everything that I learn in a way that it raises my own consciousness, and at the same time, by sharing it and by teaching it, I then help to raise the collective consciousness. And it's that ripple effect, right? So I teach, or maybe I share one story and it touches someone, and that someone does something with that knowledge or with that video they watched or the podcast or the Instagram post, and it inspires them to think differently, or maybe it inspires them to do something new or maybe do something different. And then by him or her doing that or feeling that way, that then has an effect on the people that he or she hangs out with, and then he touches or she touches these people, and then these people have effects or impact other people with, so it keeps going and going and going. It's this ripple effect. I want to help people shine their light and really use their potential to live a very fulfilling life that they can go out and contribute to the collective. And it's as though when we shine our own light, then we help other people shine their light. And in the end, I believe that that's what my calling comes down to. I'm sharing myself all over the place, and in that way I'm shining my light. And because I do that, I help other people shine their light. And I guess I also want to be this bridge, right, between spirituality on this one side, and raising consciousness and personal development and all of that. And sometimes that might be very abstract. And then being a bridge to the practicalities of real life and real life in itself, which doesn't just always happen up here in these spheres and in meditation, which it obviously does. Like meditation for me is super, super important as a practical way to practice spirituality. But in and of itself, I want to bring it back down to earth. A lot of these spiritual concepts and raising consciousness topics, and kind of translate them for everybody else. And finding my calling, when you look at it, it's really been a long process ever since I was a young teenager. And I've, taken different paths. There are a lot of decisions to be made on this journey. And yet it's been an amazing ride, and I'm really grateful for all these different pieces that are part of my journey to find my calling. And I also know that eventually I'll probably, transform this calling into something else, and then that will transform into something else. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but just I want to keep that openness to whatever is guiding me and whatever wants to come through me, that I'll just follow that, and that I'm not scared to take new paths and to evolve my calling, or maybe eventually do something completely different. I mean, I have so many ideas and stuff that I'd like to do in my lifetime, I could probably live 10 lifetimes. But for now, this is what I'm doing, and I really feel like I'm in my power and in my most authentic and truest energies, doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is live your heart out in all its different facets and on all these different channels and of ways that I'm sharing myself. And soon I'll be putting all of this, all my experience, all my knowledge that I've collected over the years into some form of resource, some form of program or online workshop or course, because there's so much that I've learned. And I really want to help people out there that are struggling to really figure out why they're here, what their calling is, how they can contribute to other people's lives. And I want to help them. And that's why I've been working on putting all of this stuff that is mostly still in my head, but put it on paper, on digital paper. And I'll be working really hard in the next few weeks to put it into a format that is easily digestible and that will help you to get started with your own journey. Or if you feel lost or you feel like you're at a crossroads or something, to help you with that as well. But the idea is to really get more people to find and live their calling, and because I know that so many of you guys are struggling with exactly that, and you don't feel like you're actually doing what you're meant to be doing. You don't feel like you're expressing your true self every day in what you do. And I ain't got time for not doing that. I think none of us have time in our lifetime to just live a mediocre life, doing mediocre things that don't actually embody what and who we are. So that's what's in the pipeline, basically. And in the end, my process, my journey was mostly inspired by a lot of books that I read, a lot of podcasts I listened to, a lot of other people that really inspired me super hard. But I also really had to ask myself a lot of questions, and some of them weren't very easy. But in the end, I just had to go out and experiment and just try out a lot of stuff, and to just trust that whichever path I take, whatever thing that I would pursue would take me to the next thing and the next thing. And eventually all these puzzle pieces come together, and here I am now. I don't want to be a travel blogger anymore, but being a travel blogger was a really important part of my journey and my development. So you never know what's around the corner, and you never know what's on the other side, and you never know what something's good for. And this is it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Also, let me know maybe what sort of struggles or challenges you're facing on your path to finding your calling. And maybe you've already found it and you want to share. That'd be awesome too. And other than that, Sign up for my newsletter on my website. It's not really a newsletter, it's my weekly sort of private email for my inner circle. It's from a friend to a friend, and it's very special and dear to me. So sign up, it's free on liveyourheartout.co. I'll put it below in the description box. But yeah, that's a very special space. It's very sacred. So sign up, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye. Mwah.